Hey everyone, and welcome back to Story of the World Highlights. Right now we're going to discuss chapter 11, which took place in India. So for this one, there's a lot of background knowledge that they need to give you in the beginning of the chapter to help you understand the main topic of the chapter, which was a king called Aurangzeb. But I will just go quickly through the beginning part and really focus in on the Aurangzeb part, which is more important. So let's get started. So in India, they had 3 generations before we get to Aurangzeb, or 2 generations before him. And the first one was his grandfather, the World Seizer named Jahangir. So Jahangir, the important things to know about him is that he wanted to expand India financially. He wanted India to get richer. And for India to do that, he needed to do trade. And England was the #1 trade country in the world. They were the best business to make. And so he signed a trade treaty with James I. Remember, son of Mary, Queen of Scots? He signed a treaty with him and even invited an Englishman over to India to be an ambassador to help build and keep the relationship between India and England. So that was Grandpa. Then his dad was King of the World, changed his title, and his name was Shah Jahan. Now, Shah Jahan is the man that made the Taj Mahal, which you might be familiar with. Now, he made the Taj Mahal because when his wife died, he was heartbroken. He was madly in love with her. And when she died, he wanted to build a mausoleum or tomb to really show the world how much he loved her. And he did not spare any expense. He spent all of his money on the nicest and most wonderful jewels and things to make this building so amazing, just like his love for her. And unfortunately, it took up all of his time. He was only focused on building this Taj Mahal. He spent many decades, which, remember, a decade is a 10-year span. He spent many decades building this and spending so much money on it. And while he was doing that, he left his sons to take over and manage his country. And eventually, his son, Aurangzeb, ended up stopping his father and taking over and imprisoning his father until his father died. But Aurangzeb was now in charge. So that was the preview. Now we're focusing on the main part. And the main part is Aurangzeb and his 3 poor decisions. Now, Aurangzeb, he wanted to make India strong. And in his mind, that meant making India richer and making India bigger. Now, India was already at a mountaintop in the north, like it hit its water maximum. And it's water on either side. So it needed to go south to expand. And to go south, he had to cross some jagged mountains and go to an area where there was multiple different kingdoms. Now, these kingdoms were split between the kingdoms that were of Muslim faith and the kingdoms that were of Hindu faith. And we'll get to more of those in a moment. But going back to the other way he was going to make India strong, and that was to bring them all together under one religion, his religion. And his religion was of Muslim faith. It was the Islamic faith. So he was a Muslim, but most of India were Hindus. They believed in the Hindu faith. And with Dad and Grandpa, they had said, you know what, there's a lot of you. We can maintain peace. It's all good, not a problem. But Aurangzeb said, no. To be strong, we need to be one religion. We're going to be Muslims. We're all going to be Muslim people. And to do this, he started putting taxes on Hindus. He started burning down any of their temples that they built. It was horrible for the Hindus. So they started to really hate him. And remember, they're a large part of the country. So a large part of the country started to hate him. Now, back to what I was saying about conquering the South lands. So half of them were Hindus, and they saw what he was doing to Hindus in his area, and so they were not a fan. And the Muslim kingdoms, the Deccan, they also didn't want to be conquered. They're like, excuse you, no. And so the Deccans and the Hindu kingdoms, the Marthas, they came together and made an alliance. They said, let's work together and stop him. Now, Aurangzeb was able to defeat them and take over the land, but those kingdoms never gave up. And so they were constantly at rebellion, constantly sending troops towards Aurangzeb's people to attack them. They were not giving up. And so that took up a lot of Aurangzeb's time and attention. While he was so focused on putting down all the rebellions in the south, he left some advisors to take over and manage his kingdom. And so he hadn't even visited to check in on them in over 25 years. He was so busy in the south. And in those years, his advisors were not that great. They had spent so much money. They had let crime go crazy. It was horrible. Bad conditions. Not great. And so that was his second big mistake, expanding to the south and focusing so much on the south. He had weakened his kingdom up north by leaving terrible advisors in charge. And he had spent so much time and money focusing on the south. So remember, number one, he had built an enemy of a large population of his people, the Hindus. He weakened his country by focusing too much on the south, which wasn't that big in the grand scheme of things. Now, the third mistake that he made is the most bad, worst decision, the most consequential of all of his decisions. And that was he allowed the British to build a city called Calcutta. Now, let's backtrack a little bit. Remember, Grandpa had signed a treaty with England to increase trade. And it did. The English set up trading posts, which are little places of business all throughout India, along the coasts and stuff. Now, they were doing so well, business was great, that they decided, the English, that they wanted to put a factory there. A factory would help speed up production, make more money. So they went to Aurangzeb and said, hey, we want to make a factory. And when we make a factory, we need people to work there. And so we need to let British people, or English people, I should say, come there and live. So they need a city, basically. And they said that to Aurangzeb. Now, Aurangzeb's busy fighting in the south, right? So Aurangzeb's like, yeah. More business, more money, great, come, whatever, cool. And so the British did. They set up Calcutta. And when they set up Calcutta, which is in an area called Bengal in India, it just kept growing. More and more people came to work there. They made another factory. Things were booming. It was starting to look like a colony in India. And as more and more people came and more factories and ships were coming to Calcutta, they needed more soldiers to protect their goods, to protect their people. And in doing so, they were becoming armed. Now, this place is getting big. Kind of looks like a colony. They have weapons and soldiers. This is not looking good. Now, during Aurangzeb's reign, the British didn't do anything. But the city was growing, and that is a big concern. Aurangzeb, when he finally reached the old age of 99, or in his 90s, I believe, he said, I see my mistakes. I see what I did wrong. And that was how he died, knowing that he had failed to make India stronger. If anything, he made it weaker and poorer, and he had failed. And these decisions are going to greatly change what happens to India in the future. That's it for chapter 11. I'll see you next time.